On July 15th, 2010, I was on a trip to Israel with a group, and we found ourselves on the edge of the Negev Desert, which is the southern part of the modern nation-state of Israel. And in the distance, we spotted some local boys, some Bedouins, coming toward us. But to put it more accurately, I think we had been spotted. I didn't know it, but we were actually nearing the edge of the family's property that these boys were part of. And as I watched the space between us shrink, it became clear that the boys were actually intent on engaging and encountering our group. Were they coming to confront us? Did they want something from us? Now, at the time, I didn't know this, but these boys were not coming in a spirit of hostility, but a spirit of hospitality. They weren't coming to run us off, but they were actually coming to invite us in. When they met our group, they began walking with us and guiding us toward their home. And at their home, their family was busy. Their family was busy making preparations for our group, baking bread, brewing tea, and we were invited into their house. And as I sat, drinking tea and eating bread in the middle of this desert, I realized something profound. I realized that I had actually encountered God. Now, during this season of Lent, we as a church community are paying attention to the 7 statements that Jesus makes in John's gospel, collectively known as the I am statements. And we're hoping that by listening closely to how Jesus portrays himself and God, we are invited to examine our own assumptions that we've made about God and about ourselves. Today, we are back in John chapter 10, where we found ourselves actually 2 weeks ago on the first Sunday of Lent, when we heard Jesus proclaim, I am the good shepherd. Do you remember that? He says, I am the good shepherd as a way to distinguish himself, set himself apart from those who claim to be rulers over God's people in that day. And unlike those so-called leaders who continually abused and took advantage of the people, Jesus invites us to trust him. To trust him. Because he is willing to put our well-being ahead of his own. So just before he says, I am the good shepherd in John chapter 10, we actually hear Jesus utter another I am statement, I am the gate, which I think is a strange way to describe yourself, using an inanimate object. It's not on my top list of 3 inanimate objects I would put for Jesus, but so be it. But then I thought about this. If you spend any time driving around the city of San Antonio, particularly the parts that are been more developed recently in our history as a community, you will notice an abundance of communities that at the very front of their neighborhood's entrance have a gate, a gated community. I myself am a product of a gated community. I spent much of my childhood growing up in a gated community, so I get it. There are a lot of perks that come with living in a gated community. Or if you live in an apartment complex, your complex may have a gate around it as well. But all of these perks actually come at as a result of trying to keep people out. They come at the expense of encountering a larger group of the community. So you'll find that unless you are a resident of a gated community or you've been put on the approved list of people who can be in the gated community, maybe you have the special code that gets you into the gated community, you are not actually welcome to be in this community. And so I think when we hear gate as a modern audience, we actually pivot to things like synonyms like exclusive or maybe even restrictive. And so when we hear Jesus say, I am the gate, it's no wonder that we begin to associate those same kinds of ideas with him. You know, whole denominations of Christianity have formed themselves along these lines, calling themselves along the way the true church, the chosen, the elect, which means that everybody else is not. Christians have tried and tried again to make access to God conditional. The right kinds of ideas about God, the right kinds of feelings for God, the right kinds of behaviors toward God. You need the right combination of these things if you're going to experience the favor of God. And so, whole groups of people have been cut off from experiencing God's love because of these people who become gatekeepers. But I want you to picture a different kind of meaning for the word gate this morning. Consider a different image, if you will. Rather than a symbol for exclusion, can't gates be visible reminders of property lines, showing you that you're actually entering into a new kind of space when you encounter a gate? So remember my story I told you just a few minutes ago. Those Bedouin boys in 2010, they actually kind of served as living gates for my group, showing us that we were now on their turf. We were entering a new area. But you see, we didn't need to feel threatened or afraid when we encountered these living gates, because they were telling us with their body language that we were under their care, their protection, now that we were in their presence. We didn't need to be on our own. We weren't on our own. So when Jesus tells you, I am the gate, I don't think he's saying that access to God is restricted to those who have righteous conduct or correct ideas. Because after all, in John's gospel, that's what the self-centered religious leaders in John's gospel do. That's what Jesus comes to continually push against. And so in a rebuke to such self-determined thinking, in this statement, I am the gate, Jesus reveals to us the heart of God, a heart that knows our hearts and the deepest desires of our being. You know, as a pastor, I get to interact with all different kinds of people. And along the way, I get to hear a lot of stories from these people. And over my 6 years of pastoring so far here in South Texas, it's become increasingly clear to me that most people are coming to church today not because they're looking for certain kinds of beliefs or certain kinds of behaviors, but they're looking to experience a sense of belonging. I'm reminded of the opening image from Ernest Hemingway's short story, The Capital of the World. He says this: Madrid is full of boys named Paco, and there is a joke told about a father who came to Madrid and placed a personal advertisement in the columns of El Liberal newspaper, which said, Paco, meet me at Hotel Montaña noon on Tuesday. All is forgiven. Love, Papa. The National Guard had to be called out to disperse the 800 young men who answered the advertisement. We laugh because we get it. All of us desperately desire to belong. We all want to come home. And I think Jesus, as the gate, is not looking to restrict who gets to belong. As the gate, rather, Jesus is showing you that you already do belong, even if you don't think you do. Earlier, Pastor Linda read us the story from the book of Genesis about the patriarch Jacob and his dream of that ladder, that stairway connecting the divine and the creation. And if you don't know Jacob's backstory prior to this story, then just trust me when I tell you that Jacob is no role model for righteousness. At this point in the story, Jacob has actually cheated his older brother out of his brother's share of the family inheritance. And now he's actually on the run, fleeing for his life. Now, despite all that's taken place, God appears to Jacob in this vision and says the following words to him: Know that I am with you and will keep you wherever you go. And did you hear how the story ends, how Jacob responds when he wakes up? This is what he says: Surely the Lord is in this place, and I did not know it. How awesome is this place? This is none other than the house of God, and this is the gate of heaven. You see, Jacob has the revelation that no matter where he's been or what he's done, he has never been outside the presence of love. Wherever he goes, there too is the gate of heaven. Here's some outrageously good news for you this morning. There is nowhere where you can go that you can end up outside of God's love. When Jesus tells you that he is the gate, he is telling you that wherever you are, there God is too. There is no boundary you can transgress that puts you beyond the care and the compassion of the God who made you and is your life. Now, unfortunately, most of us spend much of our lives telling ourselves and other people the exact opposite. We end up becoming like those religious leaders in John's gospel, don't we? Who resist Jesus and therefore resist reality. That's why Jesus calls them blind, because they stubbornly cling to a false view of the world, where right belief, correct behavior are the grounds for belonging. But today, Jesus invites you to open your eyes. Because seeing the world the way he does, it could change everything. No part of your day remains secular, because every space becomes charged with divine grandeur. No person becomes unnecessary or unwelcome, because everyone belongs, where we are all within the holy and loving presence of God. No time is idle or wasted, because every second is full of the possibility to receive and to give God. Today you're invited to open your eyes and behold the wonder that here, there, everywhere is the gate of heaven. Amen.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Weekly Teaching. To watch the full live stream of this worship service, you can view all archived streams at the Alamo Heights UMC YouTube channel. If you have any questions, email us at podcasts@ahumc.org. That's podcasts@ahumc.org. You can also visit our website, ahumc.org, anytime. Any related links are also in this episode's show notes. Again, thank you so much for being a listener. We truly appreciate your time.